All right, so we got this show on Saturday, which will be taking place in Milton Keynes, of all places. Is it the first time Eddie Hearn's put on a show in Milton Keynes? I mean, I can't imagine he's put on many shows there. But yeah, this will be at the Marshall Arena in that particular city. Now, on the show, you've got Joshua Buatsi against Marko Calic. You've also got Linus Udofia against John Harding Jr. And you've got the savage Alan Babbage against Niall Kennedy. A few other fights on there. Akib Fiaz, Kane Baker, John Hedges against Julio Cesar. Chantel Cameron versus Adriana Dos Santos. Is it Arahuo? I can't pronounce that surname, excuse me. But this show has come around a lot quicker than I expected. So props to Matchroom for, getting straight back out there and putting more shows on to keep us entertained. Now, since the video I did about Joshua Buatsi versus Marko Calic, I've had a look at Calic actually fight, because previously I was just looking at his BoxRec page, looking at his amateur career, listening to what Alan Babbage said about him. And again, on paper, this looks like a pretty stern test for Buatsi, especially when you consider the fact that Buatsi's been out the ring for, over a year by the time he gets in there with Calic? It's like, don't you want to bring it back against somebody a little less formidable? And I say formidable, it doesn't mean that he can't beat Calic. It doesn't mean that he won't beat Calic. It's just a long time out of the ring to bring him back against a fellow unbeaten fighter who's 11-0. Buatsi's currently 12-0. A guy who had a decent amateur career, and a guy who's a big light heavyweight. Much bigger than Buatsi, naturally. I had some debate in the comment section of my previous video about how big Joshua Buatsi is. I've stood next to Joshua Buatsi. Okay? I've seen Joshua Buatsi in the flesh. I saw Joshua Buatsi in Thornton Heath Tesco's. All right? Joshua Buatsi from Croydon. I saw him in Thornton Heath Tesco's. I stood right next to the guy, right? I know how big Joshua Buatsi is. And this is before most of you guys were even talking about Buatsi. So I know how big he is, okay? And when I saw him in person, he was taller than BoxRec were reporting him, because I don't know why. Whenever a light heavyweight turns professional, BoxRec always put the default height as 5'9". And a lot of people were believing it. And so I made a video at the time saying, I've seen Buatsi in the flesh recently, and there's no way that guy's 5'9". He's at least 6'1". At least. And indeed, I was correct. Now they've adjusted Buatsi's height and they list him at 6'1" or 6'2", whatever it is. And in terms of his, physical size, his bulk, when I saw Buatsi, he did not look like a cruiserweight or anything like anywhere near that. He looked like a big super middleweight to me. That's what he's kind of tall and slender in his build. People were comparing him to George Groves. George Groves is a shorter guy who's more bulky than Buatsi. Buatsi's more tall and slender. Yeah. Someone like George Groves got thicker legs and just a thicker torso and stuff like that than Joshua Buatsi, who's more tall and wiry. And in the amateurs, Joshua Buatsi fought at light heavyweight. Many amateur fighters, when they turn pro, they move down a weight. That is a common practice in boxing. And the reason for this is because when you're an amateur, you have to weigh in on the day of the fight. Sometimes you weigh in literally just a couple of hours before you get in the ring. And therefore, it's totally impractical to be dehydrating yourself to get down to a lower weight when you're fighting as an amateur. So you have to fight pretty much at your walking around weight in the amateurs. Yeah, I know some guys do starve themselves and stuff like that in the lead up to the fight and then eat loads after they've weighed in. That still goes on in amateur boxing, but it's nowhere near to the degree that you'll see it in pro boxing, because you just can't rehydrate yourself and replenish yourself sufficiently in such a short amount of time to then be able to produce, your best performance and your best physical ability in the fight. So people tend to fight at their walking around weight when they're amateurs. So when they turn pro, they move down a weight. Buatsi was only light heavyweight in the amateurs. And he actually spoke when he turned pro about the fact that he was contemplating fighting at super middleweight. So you can't try and tell me that Joshua Buatsi is some huge light heavyweight who could never get down to super middle. No, he's basically a big super middle. And as he gets older, of course, he's going to grow into the light heavyweight division, and there will come a time, maybe he's reached it already, potentially, where he wouldn't be able to safely get down to super middle and perform to the best of his ability. But the main point I'm making is Calic is a naturally bigger guy than Buatsi. That is absolutely 100% true. Go look at Calic when he was an amateur. Look at the size he was then. So this is a bigger man than Joshua Buatsi. With all that being said, having looked at Calic fight, I can see now why Eddie Hearn has decided to put Buatsi in with him. Because although he does have, decent pedigree as an amateur, he's an undefeated professional, he appears tough, he fought in the World Series of Boxing and all that kind of stuff. Just talent-wise, he doesn't look like he's on the same kind of level as Buatsi, talent-wise. He doesn't look as sharp. He doesn't look as well-coordinated. He doesn't seem to have the kind of, power and leverage in his shots as Buatsi can get. He looks like a very wily, tough guy who can mess you around and use his height and reach and all that kind of stuff. But he doesn't look dangerous, Buatsi looks dangerous when he's in the ring. Calic doesn't have that look about him. He just looks like a guy who's tough and wily and savvy and knows how to mess you around. And maybe that is more suited to the amateur game. Maybe that's why he did relatively well in the amateurs. Whereas in a professional game, when you got 12 rounds, maybe that kind of style is not so suited to the professional game. So again, after watching Calic, I can see why Eddie Hearn picked him because it is a credible name. Don't get it twisted. It's a credible opponent for Buatsi, particularly after the year layoff. But it's a credible name that appears beatable. Buatsi looks like the more talented guy here if you watch them both fight. So that's what I'll say about that. And no disrespect to anybody else on the card, but the only other fight I'm really interested in on this card is Alan Babbage versus Now Kennedy. Again, no disrespect to anybody else on there. Okay? They're all professional fighters. They're trying to make a living. They're trying to be the best they can possibly be. And maybe one of them will surprise me and jump out at me, and in my post-fight or post-show review, I'll be saying, you know what? I apologize for sleeping on this person or in this particular fight because it was an absolute barn burner, or so-and-so put in a tremendous performance and they showed themselves to be incredibly talented. Maybe that will happen. But as of right now, those are the only two fights I'm particularly interested in on this card. Buatsi, Calic, and Babbage versus Kennedy. You've also got this Udofia versus John Harding Jr. I've never seen Udofia fight. I've probably seen John Harding Jr. fight before, but I can't remember. I think he's actually from Brixton. But Udofia is a Nigerian middleweight. I mean, you don't get many of those, right? Most of the Nigerian boxers these days are at heavyweight or cruiserweight, or there's a few, I think, around maybe welterweight, lightweight, stuff like that. But in terms of Nigerian middleweights, you don't get many of them, man. So let's see what Linus Udofia can do. He's based in Luton, but he was born in Nigeria. If we just look at his record here, it doesn't appear to have fought anybody at all. There are no names on there that I recognize. So how good could he possibly be? And then John Harding Jr., indeed from Brixton, 6 feet tall, 36 years of age. He's 8-1-1, 2 KO wins, and his one loss was a KO loss to Jack Cullen last year. So, it is what it is, that fight, and the other fights on the bill too. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below about this particular show. Which fights are you looking forward to the most? And give me your feedback on the points I've raised and my views on the Joshua Buatsi, Marko Calic fight and the card in general. And again, just to finish, Alan Babbage versus Now Kennedy. Now Kennedy has been speaking very confidently about this Alan Babbage fight. He doesn't really seem to rate Babbage that much. And I've seen others on the British, boxing scene at heavyweight also say they don't really rate Babbage. I think Tom Little has said words to that effect. He says he now regrets not taking that Babbage fight when it was offered to him. There was also Don Charles' son. His name escapes me at the moment. Fox. What's his name? Can't remember now, but his surname is Fox. He's Don Charles' son. He's a heavyweight. He doesn't seem to rate Babbage. And there was also the British Nigerian heavyweight prospect. His name also escapes me. Again, forgive me, I'm an old man now. So names do escape me quite frequently. The British Nigerian heavyweight prospect who Frank Warren has, who's been sparring Daniel Dubois. He's a very confident young man. He's been sparring Tyson Fury and Daniel Dubois and what have you. Again, his name escapes me. He also has been talking about Alan Babbage and doesn't really seem to rate the guy from the interviews I've seen. Anyway, let me know what you guys think about all that in the comments. Join me on Patreon. I upload a minimum of 2 podcasts every single week, covering a wide variety of controversial topics, as well as live stream Q&A sessions. Take a look on screen right now at some of the podcasts I've produced so far. For just $3 a month, the equivalent of about £2 a month, you get access to all my new podcasts and my entire back catalogue of past podcasts, including my popular Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. You can listen on your computer or on your smartphone or tablet by downloading the Patreon app from the Google Play Store or the App Store for free. The Patreon app also allows you to download each podcast in MP3. For less than the price of a cup of coffee, you get access to dozens of hours of exclusive content. It's easy to sign up, there's no contract, and you can cancel at any time. So come and join our community of free and critical thinkers by signing up with me here on Patreon today.